Welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all so much for sticking with me through all of these episodes as I continue to detail the journey of a parent and siblings perspective, as well as a community's perspective on pediatric cancer. Maybe some things you don't see from the outside, but we want to tell you how they are on the inside. One of the good things, I guess, that can come out of this community is the amazing people that you're able to meet and communicate and collaborate with. And my guest today is somebody that we were able to meet, I think, by happenstance, just by the random drawing of how our tables were set up at CureFest a few years ago. And from there, it's just been a really good connection that we've been able to build off each other. So I would like to introduce Allie from a Glimmer of Hope Foundation and allow her to tell her story, inspiration, and give us a little bit of insight into her organization. So Allie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here. I'm glad we got placed next to each other at CureFest. I got to learn a little bit about your story. My story begins actually when I was 12 years old. So 12 years ago, almost exactly, a young girl in my sister's elementary school class, she was in middle school at the time that this happened, was diagnosed with leukemia. And I had always really been interested in helping people, especially kids. It just was kind of an innate nature in me since I was very young. And I decided that I wanted to do something to help her. I'd never seen a kid get diagnosed with cancer. I remember actually I was on the school bus and somebody said, you know, this little girl has cancer. And I turned to my sister because my sister said, do you think that's true? And I was like, no, that's not true. Kids don't get cancer. And it turns out she did have cancer. So I ended up asking my mom to teach me how to sew. And I created a hair bow in honor of her. And I sold it at both of our middle schools. And I raised over $1,300 for her family. At this time, I was in 8th grade. And from there, she nominated me a few years down the road when I was a junior in high school to run for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society Student of the Year campaign, which was a 6-week competition against kids in the state to raise money for blood cancer patients and blood cancer research, which is what she had. And through this campaign, I was told about another little girl in my community that had been diagnosed with leukemia around that same time. And her name was Ella. And I actually knew Ella because we went to the same elementary school. I was in 5th grade and she was in kindergarten. And like you said, just by happenstance that we were next to each other, I felt like the same thing about Ella and I's connection. Because I don't know why, out of every single kid on the playground, I remember her. And I remember her playing with my neighbor who was the same age as her. And I just remember this beautiful little blonde girl wearing a bow in her hair. And I just was like, this is the most perfect little girl ever. And if I have a little girl one day, I want her to be just like Ella. And so I had seen Ella when she was young. And then by fate, when I was running for this campaign, I was doing a fashion show called Runway for a Cure. And I happened to run into Ella in a local store. And I asked her if she wanted to be in the fashion show. She was 11 at the time, and she had just gotten diagnosed with cancer. She was completely bald at this time. And she kind of looked at me like, I don't know who this person talking to me is. And her dad's like, no, like we know Allie because her mom was on the PTO. And she's like, yeah, I'll think about it. I don't know. She was kind of quiet. Allie's then she was quiet. In reality, she wasn't actually very quiet, but I continually kept running into her. I ran into her at a basketball game at the high school. Her cousins played basketball, and they went to the high school. And I just went up and sat next to her and talked to her family the whole time. She ended up walking in the fashion show as the finale. The fashion show featured survivors of adult and pediatric cancer and current fighters. And she got a standing ovation. It was absolutely beautiful. And after that day, she started attending all of my events for Student of the Year. I don't want to say I didn't know how special of a connection we had, because I did. I really did. In my heart, I knew the connection that we had was very special. But I don't think that I realized it was a once-in-a-lifetime connection because I was so young. I was in high school. Ella didn't have any siblings, and she called me Big Sis. I called her Little Sis. And on National Siblings Day, she posted me. She's like, "This is my sister." It was just so special to me that this little girl looked up to me, because at the time I didn't really see myself as a role model, but she saw me as that. And we had so many fun times together. I distinctly remember going to her 13th birthday party at the sugar factory with all of her 13-year-old friends. And I was a senior in high school. And it's just such a funny picture when I picture it in my mind, because it's all these 13-year-old girls around a table and me sitting with her parents. But that's just the kind of relationship we had. We just connected on that sisterly level. So Ella was battling leukemia from when she was 11, and then the protocol treatment for leukemia is 2.5 years. So she finished her chemo on June 26, 2018. And I actually got to be in the room with her when she finished her chemo, which was so special. It still is one of the best days of my life. It was a beautiful, amazing day, and she had and has such an amazing community of support around her. Ella, 10 months later, I was in Washington, D.C. for the first time lobbying Congress for additional funding for pediatric cancer, which was obviously something that Ella inspired me to do. And weirdly enough, there was just one day that I felt really off. I had a panic attack. I struggle with anxiety, and I had a panic attack, and I wasn't sure why. There was really no reason. And then that was the day that Ella was going in for her test to make sure that she was still cancer-free. And of course, in my head, I was like, of course she's still cancer-free. She had leukemia, which everyone said has almost 100% survival rate. And then fast forward about a couple weeks later, so in April 2019, I was finishing up my freshman year of college at the University of Rhode Island. And my mom called me. I was getting ready to go into therapy. You know, of course, all of my life problems as a college student felt so heavy, and I felt like I was struggling a lot with my mental health until that day that changed my life. My mom called me, and I was checking into therapy, and she said, "Allie, I know you're about to go into therapy, so I want to tell you something." And I was like, "Okay, why are you calling me? You know I'm going into therapy right now." There was this woman standing next to me with her son. And I couldn't even tell you. It was such a blur what happened. She told me that Ella had relapsed. And I just remember breaking down into tears, and this woman hugging me, this stranger that I didn't even know, and then somehow ending up in my therapist's room. And my therapist said to me, "Are you, nervous because you're afraid that Ella's going to pass away?" And I was like, "No, she has leukemia. She's not going to pass away." I had never heard of a kid with leukemia passing away at the time. And after that, I basically went to class, sometimes went to work, and then I went to the hospital to see Ella as many days as I could during the week. She was 14 at this time, and she was waiting for a bone marrow transplant. In August, at the beginning of the month, I went away for an internship to Baltimore. And I remember telling Ella, "I'll see you when I get back." And she was in the hospital. And one day my friend Kerrigan texted me. My friend Kerrigan and we met through the Miss Rhode Island, Miss America opportunity. And Ella was my princess in the pageant. And Kerrigan also, very ironically, had been diagnosed with osteosarcoma and was in the hospital room next to Ella. Kerrigan texted me and she said, "Ella's not in her room. Do you know why?" And I literally get chills saying this, because I was like, "What do you mean, like, Ella's not in her room? Like, she's probably just," I don't know why in my head I was like, "She's probably just getting, like, at an appointment or something." But then I was like, "No, she's not. She's in the hospital. She's not an appointment." So I texted her mom, and her mom told me that Ella had gone into septic shock. And she was doing okay. They weren't really sure what was wrong with her. She was in the pediatric ICU. And that she was kind of like in and out of consciousness, I guess. And they had intubated her, etc. And I remember calling my mom and I was like, I need to leave Baltimore right now. And she was like, you only have a week left. Like, she's doing okay right now. And you have to drive your car home. Like, she was flying to come get me. So she's like, you can leave early if you want, but I have to fly and come get you. You can't just drive home. And I went back after that week. And the first place I went was to the hospital. And Ella's parents, Kathy and Chris, came in to the waiting room. And I remember them saying to me, like, you can see her if you want, but she doesn't look like herself right now. And she wasn't, like, talking or really, like, conscious at the time. So I was like, I don't know what it was, but I just remember thinking that if something happened to her, I didn't want that to be my last memory of her. I wanted to remember her, like, when I said goodbye to her when I was going to Baltimore. But I said to them, I was like, nothing's going to happen to her. And they were like, we don't know. Ella passed away on August 24th, 2019. She had a fungal infection. I was working that night. And the next morning, I got a message that said, I heard a rumor that Ella passed away. And then I didn't even have time to process or respond because immediately I got another text message that said, I'm so sorry, Allie. I know you loved her so much. I was a week before my sophomore year of college. And I had never gone to CureFest before. I had talked about going to CureFest with Ella. We had talked about after her bone marrow transplant, we were going to go to CureFest together the next year. Ella was a week from starting high school. She was very excited to start high school. We had, like, talked about all my teachers because we were going to go to the same high school that, would be accommodating to her transplant. She was, only a week or a couple weeks away from getting the transplant that was supposed to save her life. And Ella, she had leukemia, but that's ultimately not what killed her. It was the treatment just brought her body to this place where she had absolutely no immune system to fight off this infection. And since Ella's passed, I've heard about that happening to so many kids. And I actually met my best friend, Riley, who also has a childhood cancer nonprofit, because the same exact thing happened to her best friend when she was 12. And I thought that I really had no purpose, no motivation after I lost Ella. I isolated myself from my friends. I lived by myself. I didn't want to live in my sorority house. I didn't want to live with anyone. And I was barely functioning. I went from a straight A student to dealing with extreme memory loss. I forgot to do 4 essays in a month for one of my classes. I was almost passing out on campus every single day. I was so busy. I wasn't dizzy. I wasn't taking my anxiety medication. I was just avoiding every single thing. Until the pandemic hit, which for a lot of people was a horrible time, but for me, it forced me to stop, keeping myself busy with all these irrelevant things and actually sit down and think about what I was going through. And I started making face masks, just like I had made bows. I started creating face masks and donating the money to various pediatric cancer organizations. I ended up creating over 3,000 face masks and making over $10,000. And I asked Ella's mom was there a way that I could honor Ella through this, because this is something that I wanted to extend beyond the pandemic in a different way. She told me the story about how Ella had wrote a letter to American Girl asking them to create a bald doll. And her friend's parents called around to see if that it existed, and no one at the company knew about that existing. No one had heard of it, and until one person, they got down the road and they said, oh, she was like, can't you just leave the wig off the doll? And they were like, yeah, I guess we can like figure that out. And she ended up buying the doll, her friend Kendall, for her. And Ella, and actually Kendall picked the name of the doll, so Ella ended up naming her doll Hope. And Ella, in her letter, wrote that she wanted this doll so that other girls like her could feel confident, strong, and courageous in their battle. So Kathy asked if I would be willing to use some of the money to give these dolls to girls. And that is where Glimmer of Hope started. We're now a 501c3 nonprofit. We've been around for almost 4 years. We've donated over 600 dolls, bald dolls, dolls with hair, so that every kid can get a doll that looks like them. We do empowering photo shoots to help these girls feel their most beautiful on the inside and outside. We donate bereavement boxes to families who we've touched who have lost their child. And we also just had a big fashion show called Runway for a Cure. That is a long version of my story.
That's all right. That's amazing. I mean, obviously, I think, well, one, I think we have to, as our family, have to personally thank Ella then, because JC did receive one of these dolls. It wasn't from Glimmer of Hope. She did get it in the hospital, but she did get one of these dolls. It's still in her bedroom up on the shelf. And it has, I think it actually has a little doctor's outfit on it, but we have it here. And she loved it. And that was one of the things that brought her a lot of joy, because once again, this is something that looks like you. It makes you feel more normal. It's not something that stands out, something like that. And she loved it. And so that's amazing. And it's again, amazing the connections you make and the things you find out and how small this world really is. And then we go into the common misconception, two of them. One is that leukemia is the good cancer, right? We've all heard it, okay? It's people say it. I don't know why, but they do. And two, that the cancer is what physically takes these children out. And really, it's these harsh, outdated treatments that bring their body to the brink of break. And even though they do everything every single day with a smile on their face, these treatments are horrible. And when you're in a room with them, for us especially, when you're in there in a room and the doctors come in to administer this chemo, and they are in so much PPE and everything to protect themselves. And then there was one specific drug that Jace had to take during her stem cells, which was called Thiotepa. It's the only chemo drug that excretes through the pores. So you have to take baths twice a day for like a week and a half, because otherwise it will burn the skin. What are these drugs doing to the inside of their bodies? So that's something, and you hear about this. It's, Jace developed leptomeningeal disease, and the from the side effects from all the drugs that they take because they're better. Now they're on 17 different drugs, right? They're on pain medications and steroids and things for their kidneys, and it's like I thought it was supposed to make them better, right? But then all this kind of stuff is going on, but that's the unfortunate side effect, I think, of all of this, is that not too many people truly understand and see what it does to these kids. But the one thing it doesn't ever do is it doesn't ever take their spirit away, and it doesn't ever take their smile away. And they're always thinking about other people, not themselves, which is the complete opposite, I think, of adults today. I mean, myself included, right? They're thinking about, are you going to be okay? How are you doing today? I know that when we were at CureFest in 2021, that was 2 months after JC passed. And so we weren't sure if we were going to be there, but we knew we needed to be around a community that understood what we were going through.
Absolutely.
And, we met you, and we met so many incredible people that make you feel like you're not alone, because all too often in this, whether you are directly connected or whether you are, just on the whatever, you feel like you're alone in this. You feel like you don't have anybody to lean on, because people can say, I understand, but unless you're in it, you don't truly. And so that first year, we took our very close friends with us, and they brought their daughter Sam. And I remember her being the first one, to come up and say,
she was the first one ever that we gave a doll to at CareFest.
And she was so excited, and I remember that, and we still have pictures of a lot of pictures actually, and I remember their boy Elliot. He was around all the princesses, so he knew what he was doing, But they. And then we've been with them, and unfortunately August of last year Sam passed, and so we've been trying to do everything in our power to continue to get this, more awareness and more funding and more, just really to get people to listen to what we're saying. So I think we've both been on the side of lobbying, dealing with politics and in Congress and all that, and I will always say that the R and the D mean absolutely nothing. This is the most nonpartisan issue on the planet. And exactly. When I'm looking for allies, I'm looking for someone that cares. I'm not looking for what party you represent, because that doesn't matter to me. So what would you say, I guess, are some of your, good and bad experiences with lobbying or with talking to politicians about this?
Honestly, overall, I've had a really good experience. Like I said before, I've been doing this since I was 19, and for me, it's very healing because I get to use my voice to make a difference. And it's also really healing because every year when I go to CureFest and lobby specifically, I get to go with this group of siblings who lost their sister to DIPG, and to see them so young use their voices, that is so moving. I mean, the youngest, Bridget, she never even met her sister. And so I think having kids in the room makes a huge difference. I will say, I share a lot of personal stories about Ella when I lobby, and a lot of times the staffers are very moved by that. And when we went in, I think we had 5 meetings at CureFest last year, and 3 co-sponsors signed on to the bill to Give Kids a Chance Act out of 5 that we know of that day. So that was amazing. And then there's also times where, like you said, this is definitely bipartisan, and sometimes staffers, I don't know if people are just uncomfortable with getting emotional or sharing their feelings, but sometimes I just hear like excuses about why they can't do this or can't focus on this. And, I just came to share my story. I don't need you to say that you're going to sign on right now. Obviously, they have to talk to the congressman or congresswoman about the issue if they want to co-sponsor the bill. So, I mean, that's been very few and far between. I just really appreciate that they take the time to listen to my story and my friends' stories, because as amazing as it is that it potentially makes a difference in these bills being passed, it also makes a difference for me, for these kids, for my best friend Riley, who goes with me. It's really been powerful to be able to, share that with someone who actually has the potential to make a difference. And I know my generation has a lot of opinions on a lot of political issues, but sometimes that they don't vote because they don't really think that their vote matters. But I know firsthand that my vote matters now because I've talked to these congressional staffers and congressmen and congresswomen, and I know that the ones that did co-sponsor, if they stay in office, we're going to get somewhere with these bills. So I think for me, I've been, pushing my friends to use their voice, whether that's in voting or lobbying, because in any avenue, it's ultimately going to make a difference.
Oh, I absolutely 100% agree. I don't like the whole "my vote doesn't matter" type of thing. It's everybody's vote matters, because if you get too many people together that say that, then you are going to sway it in one way just by not doing something.
Exactly.
So if you've got a cause, if you've got a hill that you're willing to die on, then I say fight for it tooth and nail. And that's what we do. That's right. That's what advocates do. That's what our organizations do, is trying to make a difference. And I absolutely love the younger the advocates, the better. Not
totally
necessarily because you see a kid and you're like, that makes me feel sad. No, it's because these kids have a voice and it's so loud at such a young, and to be passionate about anything other than, Legos and playing on the playground, it's like, right, this is incredible to see this, to have these opportunities and to have these kids out there, speaking. And when I see them at CureFest, when I see them, speaking on stage and telling their stories, or when I see them singing and performing and realizing this is a life that they chose, that they didn't have to be a part of, some of them. And, my daughter she'll be turning 16 next month. She is going to be a child life specialist because of what her sister went through and what she's seen. She's working on a school project right now where they're looking to actually market a product for these kids, and it's amazing to see the effort that they put into it, and that's what makes me happy, because at some point, right, I'm going to be too old to be doing this, and I need the younger generation that has all those opinions, but focuses their efforts, and they're not all over the place, and they focus their effort and they find a target and they go for it. And I love that. So, we'll be in DC every year. We'll be in DC this year, and I love to be there and be a part of as much as I can. It is a lot about networking. It's about making connections with people, and I love that. Last year, for the first time, I met Brian from Oliver Patch Project, and he is just a ball of energy.
He really is.
And I love it. And when I was able to meet people from Love Your Melon, who they send us hats now that we can put in our packages, which I love.
I love that.
So it's incredible. It's about seeing so many people that are in your space, when all too often I think we feel like not enough is being done. It's just that the news doesn't show all the stuff we're doing, because it's not flowery, and thinking about sick children is not something that you want to be. You close your eyes and it goes away. And I think that's kind of the issue that we have.
Completely agree. I think I got to speak at a conference in DC a couple months ago for RX benefits, and the first thing I started out with was asking them how much funding they think pediatric cancer receives. And these are all, this is a company of people who, most of them, more than I thought, but most of them weren't personally affected by pediatric cancer. And it's really a ripple effect, because I always start out when I give a keynote saying, I'm not here to depress you or make you upset. I'm here because if you don't have a story to share, to be passionate about pediatric cancer, after this presentation, you'll have a story. Because you'll at least have a story about my friend Ella, or a story about one of these kids. And we need more advocates that weren't directly impacted by pediatric cancer to speak out, because that's where a true difference is made. Actually, last time that I was in DC, so when I was in DC for this conference, I decided to go lobby as well. And I literally just popped into all these staffers or congressional staffers' offices just to give them the packet. I didn't even have an appointment with any of them, because that it is the ripple effect. Like you said, your daughter doing this in school, that was just like me when Ella was diagnosed. I did like my democracy project, and then in college I did any project where I could like design something or do something for advocacy. It was about pediatric cancer, and every single time my group members would say, I didn't know anything about pediatric cancer. But now, maybe they're not going to go lobby Congress, but maybe they'll tell someone else about it, and that will make a difference.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And with our daughter and with you, and things, you become affected by it to the point where you want to do something. You want to make a change. And I have two older daughters. So my 18-year-old, she absolutely loves her sister. She was there for her. She was, they were close, had a tight bond, but she doesn't wear gold. She doesn't wear the ribbon. She doesn't want to be associated with that, not in a bad way. It's just, she chooses to kind of move forward. Sometimes we say with blinders on a little bit, and that helps with moving forward. Whereas my soon-to-be 16-year-old is all about it. She wants to be there she'll be there with us in DC. Sometimes I think it's a reason to take a week off of school, but whatever.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
I'm like, I love this, but also it's so nice to get school.
Yeah. That's we figured it out. She says it's not, but whatever. And but yeah, she's there and she's got the gold on and she's marching with us and she goes to Madison with us. And we did the same thing. My wife and I went to Madison and with a bunch of information, and we just walked to every single Congress door that was there, and we walked in. We said, we want your support. We want you to listen to what we're saying, and yeah, we got a lot of people turning us away. You get a lot of, when you walk out that door, you don't know, is this going to just go in the trash? Is it going to be put to the side? We have a handful of people we've been able to speak to and that have taken the time. And I have two congressional members, one Senate, one House, that have taken the time to speak with me and continue to work with me. We have an idea that we're working on here, and as soon as I get everything tightened up, then I will reach out to them again to look for their support to push something. And I don't personally have an off switch, and that drives people crazy sometimes. But I feel like there's just too much to do to stop. There's too much to be accomplished, and far too many people that want to, again, bury their heads in the sand and believe that this isn't a problem. Because childhood cancers falls into that number range where it's a rare disease because of a Rare Diseases Act, which that should go away, and then maybe there'd be more focus on this. And then when we were there in DC last year, and they were excited because they said we got funding from 4% to 8%. That still seems like way off balance to me. There's so much discovery that comes from pediatric cancer that goes into treating adult cancers. Why are we not focusing more on this and at least being a little bit more even?
Completely agreed. Riley always says this quote that I think one of the congressional staffers said this to us, that kids are only like whatever percentage of our population. I think it was like 20% or something. I don't know. I don't know the exact number on that, but they're 100% of our future. And that's so true. I think it's amazing all the advances that are being made for adult cancers, but at the same time, it's really sad that because it's not profitable for pharmaceutical companies is the reason that a lot of things aren't moving forward with pediatric cancer. And like you said, there's so many amazing organizations that I really feel like pediatric cancer research is really spearheaded by these organizations like The Cure Starts Now and Tough Together. And Tracy Ryan has a company too where she's working on a treatment. She's absolutely incredible. And it's sad that we don't always have the governmental support that the kids deserve. But, like you said, you don't have an off switch. So the bigger this community gets, the louder we are together. And there's so much power in using our voices together. And I think that, and I hope that will ultimately make a difference.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, we this year, our event, our gala in August, all the proceeds are going to Onco Heroes. And that's simply because of that problem of when pharmaceutical companies don't want to test these drugs in child instances because it costs money, they put them on the shelf. That's years and years of research just lost or just collecting dust. Onco Heroes takes those drugs and buys the rights and does the testing that needs to be done. And Tracy Ryan, I have spoken to her, and I heard her speak, well, for the first time 2 years ago, but last year I was able to hear her speak again at the Congressional Caucus meeting. So I reached out, and she will be a speaker at the gala this year here.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. I love Tracy and Sophie. Oh my God, I literally love them so much. She is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
excited
to talk to anyone too, and share her story, and yeah, she's incredible. There's so many incredible people in this community that are making huge strides.
Right. Yeah, and that's the people that I want to especially highlight and focus on, because that's that vision. When you hear that it just takes one person out there in the world that hears it and then passes it on to the next person, so the next person. It's a domino effect. Because otherwise we end up with just stalemated research and bills in Congress that don't go anywhere, because they cost the state or the government money. And why would we want to do that, even if it means, providing a better future? So 100% of the future, absolutely, because without kids, number one, you will never have another person to vote for you and keep you in that office that tells us no, right? And I will also say this, and I've said it before, and one day I'm going to put a reel together, but every single politician, left, right, down the middle, has used kids in their campaign from the beginning or to every single one of them. 100%. In whatever capacity, whether it's education, whether it's food, whatever, they've used them. So at some point, they were a crutch. But now that it's maybe we're just not loud enough. I've been told I'm not a loud enough voice by myself. Maybe I'm not alone, but this community together is extremely loud and deafening, and we want to just make a difference positive, because I don't want you to ever feel again what you felt when Ella passed, right? I don't want to ever have anybody else feel what we did when JC passed away. I don't want that. I don't want people to truly understand. Yeah. I just want you to listen.
Mm-hmm. I think, I feel sad that somebody told you that your voice isn't loud enough, because I think without using your individual voice, there's a missing piece to the puzzle, because you just, like you said, with networking, you just don't know who you run into. It just might take running into that right person to make a huge impact. I mean, I think about Lisa Ward, who literally relentlessly works on making a difference for DIPG. And if she felt like, her voice wasn't loud enough, then she wouldn't have created everything that she created. The same thing goes for you. And I don't know, there is so much power in community, and there's also so much power in using your individual story, because I think about JC and Ella, and who knows what they would have been and what they would have been doing. And Ella wanted to be a teacher, so maybe, she would have been able to touch kids' lives in such a special way. I know she would have been. And maybe another kid that passed away would have come up with the cure to cancer. You just don't know. So by not prioritizing this, we're really just not prioritizing the future of our country, because childhood cancer is the number one disease killer of kids. So when you hear number one anything, it definitely seems like something that we should be focused on. It just, because it doesn't personally impact everyone has their issue that they're focused on, right? But for us, it's so important, because we just know that this is a domino effect. Like you said, it's more kids are going to be continuously diagnosed with cancer, and it's just going to, become a ball and end up getting worse if we don't do something about it now. And if we don't, Ella and JC aren't here to use their voices, so we have to be their voice.
Right. And it honestly, I think, well, when JC was diagnosed in 2020, obviously the number was 43. I believe the number is 47 a day now. Yeah. So it's not getting better. It's getting worse. And another one of those fun statistics that they like to throw out is that, well, now we have an 80% cure rate for pediatric cancer. But it's like you cut the camera, and before you tell us that it's a 95% recurrence rate and side effects that they're going to be dealing with the rest of their life. Right. That's the side effects are almost worse from time to time. JC was losing her hearing. They told her you'd never have kids. You've got the risk of massive risk, especially in girls, of developing breast cancer later in life because of the treatments, and of course, just the absolute relapse that is once you get past 5 years, you've got the quote unquote, you're cured, but you're not. Okay. You are still every year going for those scans. Every year you're on the edge of your seat before those scans, thinking, oh man, what's going to happen. And if anything, it's the mental game that it plays with these kids and with these families is so detrimental, and it's just left out of the conversation completely. We've got the cure rate up to 80%. Well, what happens? Number one, okay, well then there's a 20% of kids that we're still missing if you want to leave that like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the side effects and everything else that you end up with, it needs to be addressed. And these drugs are just brutal and just unbelievable. I just cannot even imagine. I can't, my own self, I don't know how I would handle what these kids go through with a smile, because I know as an adult, I'd be griping, I'd be upset all the time, be crying about it,
me too.
And they're just like, well, can I go out and play? Is it, can we just, what are we doing? Can we get out of this bed? And
and it really is amazing to see kids when they finish treatment. For me, it was almost a little bit alarming. My friend Carly, her daughter, they were at CureFest this past year. Amelia just finished treatment. She's 5 years old for leukemia. And Amelia was just since I met her when she was just had turned 3 years old, was just very lethargic and very not in a good mood. I mean, you can't blame her for that because she's on steroids and everything, but not wanting to play. And all of a sudden it was within a couple of days of finishing treatment, it was a completely different kid. She is playing and running and screaming, and I'm like, oh my God, it's actually so alarming that for 2.5 years, every cycle of different chemo that she was on can do that to not only her body, but her personality. I was convinced, I was like, oh, that's just her personality, until she finished. And now she's a different kid, which I'm so happy about. But like you said, it lingers in your mind, because for me, I was like, oh, Ella's not going to relapse. That's not something that's even in the cards. It's really scary. And what we do at Glimmer of Hope, even, all the medical side effects, but the impact on their mental health and self-esteem for a 6-year-old, it's just insane. To see these little kids think that they're not beautiful and feel ashamed and not want to go to school because they don't have hair. That's what we focus on a lot through giving them the dolls and through doing the photo shoots. And even with, adults, when we just had the fashion show and we had 50 adult and childhood cancer survivor and fighter models. And one woman called me after the fashion show and she said that this was the first time that she has felt beautiful since she was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago, because of everything that it's done to her body. And it's not their fault, but I hate that they're struggling with this and they're there for other people, like you said, but they still on the inside feel like they're not enough or they're not beautiful enough. And when they shouldn't have to feel that way at all, because everyone around them sees them as perfect,
Right. No, I 100% agree. And this, it's actually something that I do a lot of social media stuff, and this is something that we're dealing with right now. It's almost like getting people to understand that you can't pigeonhole an entire group of people based on one physical characteristic.
Exactly.
And that when you're going through this, and obviously maybe we're a little bit biased, but I always thought JC was gorgeous. I don't care. And when her hair fell out, to be honest with you, she didn't care. She was just like, well, I guess I don't have to brush it. There's
some kids that are just amazing.
Yeah, she didn't. It was just like, I don't care. I don't, whatever. It's like she had the attitude when they said you can't have kids. She goes, oh, well, I guess I'll just adopt. That was just her attitude. And it was like, but I hate that these kids are made to feel like there's something wrong with them. And I know with JC, another big thing, and I don't know if you notice this with Ella or other children, that they think that everything that's going wrong, and especially, let's say, if your parents are fighting or whatever, that it's their fault. They feel. She apologized to us all the time. Like, I'm so sorry. I feel like it's my fault. This, that, and the other. It's like, none of this is your fault. You didn't do anything to deserve any of this. And how you're going through this with this smile and this attitude and is way more than I can expect from any adult that I can name off the top of my head at any point.
I can't say I firsthand experienced that with Ella. I mean, I don't know if that's something that she went through with her parents at all, but I will say that I am very close with a little girl named Izzy, and she's around the same age as Ella, and actually she is like exactly like Ella. It's kind of crazy. She's on her junior board, and even Ella's parents were like, "Oh my gosh, she looks like her, she talks like her." It's just crazy. So she spoke at our runway show. Oh my gosh, I have to show you the video, because when she spoke, she just walked through on stage. She didn't have a script or anything. She's like, I memorized like what I was gonna say. She just was literally speaking from her heart, and she said, she just immediately broke down in tears, and she said, I remember the day that I was diagnosed with leukemia, and I thought, it literally gives me like chills to think about it. She's like, what have I done wrong to deserve this? Like, this is, I obviously did something for this to happen to me. And it's like, you're right, she's so young. She was probably like 11 years old when that happened. Like, what could she possibly have done wrong? Nothing. And no one deserves this. It doesn't matter how bad of a person you are, you don't deserve this. So it's so heartbreaking. And I wrote a book called Hope Has No Hair to kind of introduce kids to the hair loss process, not only kids with cancer, but also their peers. And I go in and I read it to schools that don't necessarily have a kid that had cancer in the class. And it's so funny because the peers, their other students, they say, like, Alora, another little girl, her mom read it to her class, and she was like, one of the kids was like, well, Alora's beautiful with or without hair. Like, they don't care. The kids think that they care. I mean, I can't speak to everyone. I know that kids get bullied for this also, which is absolutely terrible. But these little kids is just so amazing because they just see it as their friends. They don't see this as anything weird. And even the kids that I babysit, I mean, I've been with them for 4 years, and when I started explaining to them about the bald dolls, they were so young. They're like, why is it bald? I don't get it. And now they're just like, oh my God. Like Charlotte, the littlest one, she's 5. Her favorite book is Hope Has No Hair. And she always says to me, she's like, I show her pictures of the kids we work with. She's like, they're so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I want to look like them. They're so beautiful. And it's like so heartwarming to have like the innocence of a little kid. And that's what these kids need to hear, is from their friends that, they really don't care. And to them, it's just their friend.
Right. Yeah. That's when Jace got out of the hospital 2 days before her birthday, after the diagnosis and the surgeries, we went back to her school, and she walked in, and it was like she had never left. These kids, and even now, we're coming up on 3 years in July since Jace passed, and even now, her class, moving up through the grades, they still talk about her. They still keep her picture up in the classroom. When she tried to go back to school, when she had no hair and she was weak, but she was in there, they didn't care. They treated her like they're her best friend. Nothing like what she looked didn't matter. They just loved their friend. And it's so incredible to see that innocence is true, that we are missing that innocence in this world in general. And I hate that we're losing it every single day to these kids. We have one of her classmates, actually, he emceed our event last year, and he'll emcee it this year. And this kid, I'm telling you, he's like a tiny politician.
I love it.
His passion and his voice is just so amazing. And what he's able to kind of get out there, and he commands that respect that he doesn't have to ask you for it. You just get it.
I love it.
And they just, the fact that they loved her so much in such a short amount of time and continue to keep her memory alive, that is what we're missing. And that was also the very thing that our neurosurgeon told us, is that the reason that he's a pediatric neurosurgeon is because he wants to preserve the innocence of children. And that's, we love him for that. And it's true. It's something that I wish we had more of, but these kids, the way that, I hate the fact that we hear about bullying. I hate the fact that they're picked on for what they look like, but at the same time, these kids, a lot of them have that confidence. And I know, like Sam, she would have told you exactly how she felt if you decided to say something.
Yeah.
And that was, she was an old soul, and it was like, that's, go for it. Her parents were like, okay, it's like, can I say a bad word? Say what you want,
Yeah, exactly.
just
I
let it
love
out.
that. Ella was very uncomfortable with public speaking when I first met her. So like I said, I've been doing pageants for a little while, and I always wanted Ella to do them. Like, she was too young, but I was like, when you get older, I'm gonna help you. You're gonna be like Miss Rhode Island. She's like, I'm never doing that. And my sister's the same way. Like, my sister's like, she just doesn't like public speaking. But after Ella passed, her mom wrote me a letter of recommendation for an award, and she wrote in it that I helped Ella find her voice, because Ella wasn't really sure about like sharing her story in public, and then she ended up being the honored hero for Leukemia Lymphoma Society Student of the Year the year after I ran. And she ended up sharing her story for that. She shared her story for Pennies for Patients, and she made all these videos for all these different organizations. And I love that she got to have that confidence in herself. And selfishly, I'm so happy about that, because I'm glad that we have those videos of her getting to share her story. We did like a little video montage for the runway show, and part of the video montage was actually her voice sharing her own story. And that is so special. I mean, not every kid wants to do that, and that's totally understandable, but when they get that confidence to be able to share their story and make a difference, that is really what makes a difference, right? Because, I mean, it's great and everything that I have an organization, but when someone like these kids, like you said, actually share what they've been through, that is like the kicker. That's what makes the difference. So it's people like you and I that get to inspire them to use their voice and make a difference, which is, where our role comes in and feels really special and fulfilling for us.
Yeah, no, I think that I love to be kind of the facilitator. Like, I love having a Rolodex of names that I can reach out to for help and guidance, and also to have that to be able to hand off to my daughter, who wants to be so involved in this community, and say, do you know someone? Yeah, I can get you in touch with this person and this person. Here you go. Let's go. And hearing it from them personally, hearing it from the kids, from the siblings, is so much more impactful. It's not that, again, it's not that you and I aren't making an impact, but it's so much more impactful from these kids that have been through it, from these the siblings that they're going through it right alongside of them.
Absolutely.
And they're feeling it. That impact is massive, and I want to be able to continue to facilitate that with my daughters, and I want to be able to continue to facilitate that with this community, and give them as much of a voice as possible to continue to make a difference. It's unfortunate that the your voice isn't loud enough quote came from my own family, but
that's how it is sometimes.
It's tough.
Family.
It's tough, but I know that it, on one hand, I know it's not meant as kind of a detriment to your character or anything. I think it's more or less, you're going to put yourself out there where so many people have failed, but I like that. I like that road, that path less traveled. I honestly like being told no, because it makes me fight even harder. And that's part of the first speech that I said on a Senate committee, was that any of you can tell me no if you want to. I actually enjoy it. It just means I need stronger people alongside of me, and I will find those stronger people. The people that aren't saying, well, I can't say no, or I can't say yes to you, because I'd have to say yes to everybody. And unfortunately, that I don't like. And my answer to that might seem very harsh, but my answer to that is, if somebody else has a mission, a cause that they want to fight for, it's up to them to get up off the couch and do the work.
Exactly.
I'm here now. This is my cause. You listen to me. Just like if you're in a doctor's office, you are their only patient at that moment, not what golf game they've got coming up, not the patient down the room. You are there right then. So it's time to listen. And so, we will just keep doing what we're doing, and we will keep pushing, and we will keep sharing these stories, and we will, listen, we put their names in lights because that's where they deserve to be. Ella was going to be a teacher. JC wanted to be a NICU nurse. They would have made a difference in children's lives one way or another. And today, I think what we're doing is just getting that story out there, being that advocate for them when they can't speak for themselves. And I'm proud to do it. It is absolutely not a community that I would ever have wanted to be a part of, or even want to be a part of in that sense. But I will fight tooth and nail and go scorched earth for everybody in this community now. And because I don't see friends, I see family. And for that, I mean that I will not stop fighting until there is a difference made, until there is a bill somewhere. Our goal is a bill or a building with JC's name on it that is something that will help hundreds of thousands of other children and take that number from 47 to 0. And until that happens, unfortunately, I will feel like I have failed because I feel like I have to make that happen.
You will, though. I think I'm reading this book right now, and it talks a lot about mindset and how your opportunities are limitless. And sometimes we can put ourselves in these boxes where we feel like, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, we don't have, like, our voice isn't loud enough, we don't have the resources. But I think that's why people like me and you are able to grow our organizations, because we don't believe that our opportunities have a limit. And so I definitely think, whatever you put your mind to, you'll absolutely accomplish. And I'll just be the person to say that even if for some reason you don't, which you will, you haven't failed, because like Kathy and Chris, Ella's parents, say to me all the time, even if this ever gets overwhelming, even if you just gave out one doll to one kid, that would mean the world to us. Like, it's not about, like, for them, it's not about, like, the big numbers and everything. For me, it is. I'm like, go big or go home. But for them, it's just that Ella's name is out there and being remembered, because I think that's every parent's worst fear, that their child is going to be forgotten. And, I mean, all these kids, I haven't met every single kid that we've touched in a certain way, but I know that I see kids that I never have met, that I've never talked to their parents, and I remember them. Like, if that helps, like, any parent to know, I'm like, I will remember your kid, and you don't even know me. But none of these kids will ever be forgotten, because even though I'm working in Ella's name, we have kids that we give stuff to that pass, and I am working in all of their names, because they all matter, and they ultimately, we're going to use all of their stories and all of their names to make a difference. So it's really special, getting to do this work. And I'm just like you. Like, I'm not going to stop until it's the same outcome. I don't think any of us will, because we just know the difference that Ella and JC and all these kids would have made. And unknowingly, you're actually helping out these congressional staffers, congressmen, people in the government, everyone, doctors, nurses, because it's not your kid or it's not your friend until it is. Mm-hmm. And then when it is, and you don't have the treatments, or you do have the treatments, hopefully they'll be thanking people like you for speaking up when it wasn't, before it was their kid.
Right. Yeah, that is unfortunately the one angle that I don't like to use when I'm speaking to these congressional members is, but it's the sad reality is that pointing at their kids' pictures on the desk and say, this can be you anytime.
Yeah.
It's not a threat. That's just it's in the statistical reality of it happening is it can be like we always say it's I don't know if it's a stupid thing to say, but it's like we weren't cancer parents until the day we were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We had no idea this life. We had no idea. I think how many people go to the hospital every day and don't realize that 7 floors up, there's kids battling cancer. There's kids recovering from brain surgeries and from, tumor resections and stuff. It's like you don't realize it because you're not forced into it, but it could be you at any moment. And then you will be thanking us for saying, you were here. You were trying to make that difference. We appreciate it. So hopefully it just continues to go in the right direction, and you find that right person that wants to work with you and help you, and you find that mission and you stick with it. I am fully on board with our mission every single day, and it continues to grow, whether it's the advocacy side or the podcast side. My wife, I'm not taking credit for this, but she has written in a children's book that is currently sitting in with the publisher and an illustrator.
Yes.
So it's due to be out before CureFest. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read it.
Yes, it is. It is something. I was able to reach out and speak to Leah from Leah's Kids, and she got us in touch with her publisher, and then we got in touch with the illustrator. So it's been
exciting.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind where it's like we keep adding iron to the fire, but I'm okay with it because it's the busyness has always been my therapy. That's it keeps me going, and I feel like you're making a difference, and so I'm excited. But so I can say that everybody's becoming an author, but it's a great way to share a story and to connect with the community on a different level. So
it is, and think about how many, like, I think about it like this way, like how many princess books are out there, or how many, all these different genres. We need more than one book to help kids, and there's so many different avenues that you can help kids. Like, my book's about kids losing their hair, but just because another book is about pediatric cancer, like, in my opinion, the more the better. The more resources out there that can help kids. Unfortunately, the reality is that we're not gonna touch every single kid. So, you might help these group of 30 kids, and I might help these group of 30 kids. And even if there is overlap, that's great, because Kathy, Ella's mom, says it all the time. She's like, these kids deserve everything. Like, they deserve every single thing. So, if there's overlap, I mean, I know, like, for Ella, we didn't know about a lot of these resources when she was in treatment. And I remember applying for a care package for her through this organization called the AJU Foundation. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. I just wanted her to have everything. So if I knew about all the resources that I know about today, I would have applied for every single one for her. That's what I do for my friends. Like, they deserve everything. So I think it's awesome. I can't wait to read the book. I want to have it in my office. We have a little playroom. So.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. It's something that we had no idea what the process was going to be like. We're like, this is going to be hard. This is going to be expensive. This is going to be just so time consuming. But when speaking to the publisher and everything, it's coming together so easily, and so much of the stress is off of us just to kind of provide the idea and the story.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited. And my business partner, my TikTok business partner, and I here, we are all in on this book, and so you'll have to see these in September. But we have all the characters tattooed on our leg right now.
Oh my gosh! That's amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if fundraising is easier for you, but we have to do weird things in order to get people to donate money to us.
No, fundraising is hard for everyone. I don't think fundraising is easy for anyone.
Well, if you got, listen, I'm telling you what, any ideas out there that don't involve pain and suffering for us, we're on board. I mean, we say it's okay because what these kids go through is nothing, or what we go through is nothing compared to what they go through. But yeah, we've been tattooed and pierced and everything, but whatever we have to do to reach these goals. But it's
I mean, if it works, it works.
It's something to see, but we've set a pretty high bar for next year. I don't know what the heck we're gonna do, but
That's amazing.
But yeah, so that was yeah. Do you have any last words of wisdom for the community here, or people that maybe don't, or you can plug something if you'd like to?
Let me think on that for a second. I think the most important part of all this kind of advocacy, when it comes down to it, I speak to a lot of people about this stuff, obviously, and not everyone is familiar with the statistics and the congressional bill terminology and all that kind of stuff, but what it really comes down to is learning the individual kids' stories. So having platforms like this where I can share Ella's story, it means the world, because somebody might hear the story that doesn't know about Ella, and like you said, that's the most precious thing, is being able to remember these kids. And I hope the same thing, that there's not more kids that have to be remembered, that there's more kids that get to live beautiful lives and know that their differences, whether that's how they look or what they've been through in their life, are what actually make them beautiful and special. I tell the kids when I go into schools all the time that I always got the mark, like, talks too much in class. And now I use it for my job. So I think, these kids have such powerful voices, and I just want to encourage everyone, whether you're a kid with cancer or whether you're an adult or whether you're someone who's never been touched by pediatric cancer but was touched by this podcast, your voice does make a difference, and the different things about you are what make that using that voice special.
100%. 100%. So I want to thank you so much for taking this time to speak with me today and share your story and share Ella's story, and Glimmer of Hope, which is incredible. Like I said, we came together by happenstance, by just the random table placings. And I think that is probably one of the coolest things that the people that you're able to meet. So, I'm truly honored to be able to have met you and to speak with you and to still be able to stay in contact and know that we're working together for the same cause, and that as this army, as we love to call it, is continuing to get bigger, that we will make an impact for all of these children, and that there will be more in the future that will be able to live and be out there using their full potential and not being remembered for what they could have been.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my final thought, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time with me today. And
thank you.
So everybody, make sure you're checking her out. It's glimmerofhopefoundation.org, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All of the information is there about events or donations, things like that. Again, 501c3s, we run on donations and all of your community support. Without you, we really struggle and have to get tattooed and things like that. So thank you so much, and we'll see everybody next week.